the Indian chocolate rock, as shown here. Many people go to Peru to see the bird, and it's difficult to see, but our group is lucky to see it. And Kristen took this photo.
Alright, so while we were in Peru, we had a thing called Think Tank that we do every year. And the staff come up with a topic. This year was privilege. So before we went to Peru, 2 days before, we had all the school that was going in a classroom, and we came up with some things that we thought privilege came up added into. So some of those things were class, family, gender, ethnicity, disability, and sexual orientation. Throughout the whole trip, we had to see what it was like and how it was tied into Peru. We always thought money was a part of it, but when we went to Peru, we saw that it wasn't. People were living on dirt floors with their food running around the ground. And it was really strange because they were happy. They were really happy. They were happy about the things around them, like the mountains and the countryside. It was a really wonderful thing to see, and it was amazing and a great privilege to be able to witness it and be a part of it.
All the classes gave us a better understanding of what we were doing. Being in another country, doing classes makes you aware of your environment around you and what you're doing in the classes. Thank you.
I'm Rena Naylor, Matthias and Bryce, and when visiting a new country and a new culture, we tend to look through several different lenses, and what is the first thing you notice when you travel? And we like to share the 3 things that stood out most to us. What stands out most to me when I visit other places is the architecture, because architecture can show a place's culture, a way of living, and its history. Our first day in Peru, we explored Cusco, and we visited a beautiful Catholic cathedral. It was originally the Temple of the Sun, built by the Inca for worship and other religious uses. And when the Spanish took over, they simply built on top of it to create the cathedral. Instead of demolishing it, they left the remains of the Temple of the Sun to replace the indigenous religion with Catholicism. And today, built on top of the ancient stonework and old Spanish brick, there's a 3rd level of modern steel beams and wood floors with glass walls, where we could see the priests going about their daily business in the courtyard. When we left to visit other places in Peru, we came back later, about a week, and we had more time to look around the city, and I took notice of a few things I hadn't before. The architecture in Cusco is very interesting, with how the whole city melds 3 time periods together in architecture. Some of the alleyways are made from ancient stonework the Inca had built into their roads and buildings that have lasted till today. In some places, one could see where the Spanish had used the old Inca structures as the foundations for their new buildings. In the main plaza, Spanish influence is obvious with covered walkways and large arching openings, making up the majority of exteriors to buildings around the square. There's Spanish tile roofing everywhere, and there's Catholic cathedrals throughout the city. But even with all those surviving ancient and historical buildings, there's still a modern influence in Cusco, with department stores and fast food places, and even a Starbucks present in the square. And this mash of time periods, cultural influences, and ideas, this cultural synergy is visible in Cusco's architecture, and it creates a gorgeous mosaic that's part of Peruvian culture.
All right. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about sort of the one of the lenses that I saw through, which was the more cultural aspect of their overall people and their culture. So first off, I want to talk a little bit about one of the encounters that we had of their sort of Quechuan religion, which is it's more practice than it is a religion. It's based off the idea of shamanism, where they have shamans that are a little more important in their ranking system, and they perform healings and rituals for the different people. So this is one of the mountains that we saw. It's very pretty. And while we were there, we during our Kampa hike, which Emily talked a little bit about, the idea was to peak this mountain, and to do that we had to ask permission of the Andean mountain god. And to do that, we had somebody, one of the shamans. His name was Pablito, and his wife Marguerite. They did a little bit of teaching with us, so we learned about some of their practices and some of the herbs and some of the different things that they use. So this is Pablito. The picture looks a little bit strange. He doesn't have legs. It was part of a panorama shot, so his legs were cut out. He has legs. So as you can see here, he's doing an offering for us, where they put in this piece of paper all the different things that they believe the Indian gods enjoy, the things they like, and it's the best things that they can find. So the best coca leaves, the best candies, all these different things. And the idea is you wrap it up and then you burn it, and that's how the guys receive that offering. And this ritual was to ask permission, like I said, to go up onto this mountain. Unfortunately, we weren't given that permission, so to speak. The weather conditions weren't the best, so we had to go partway up and then we came back down, which was unfortunate, but that's just kind of how that works sometimes. So this was on our hike out from the Kampa base camp. Just a very pretty and I thought very spiritual picture. I really enjoyed that. So a little bit about their general information, historical information. So they were a very religiously centered culture all around. Again, shamanism and Quechua is their original sort of idealism, but Roman Catholicism came in with the Spanish mercenaries and whatnot, and they sort of inserted their religion into that culture. So they sort of lost all of their importances to time. And over the past few decades, they've been able to sort of come out as a people and as a culture, and it's been becoming more and more prominent in Peru. So there's a certain synergy between the Spanish and native Peruvian culture. Like I said, Spanish mercenaries came in and sort of took over, but as time has gone on, they've begun to work together a little bit. And again, like I said, over the past couple of decades, they've really started to become aware and become welcoming of each other, which is really, really cool. So some of the Peruvian dances and rituals are there for the Catholicism and those religious practices, which is a little interesting to see. So they've got cultures that are just melding together, and it's really cool to see that when we go down into Peru. And overall, they just had a very loving and welcoming culture, and it was really nice to be a part of that and to be able to learn about that in a very first-hand way.
So, one of the lenses that I looked through while I was in Peru were the gender roles, in the sense that they're more traditional, that men do the more physical laboring jobs and women do the more stay-at-home jobs. Two good examples of these are the moto taxis and the little shops. The moto taxis were all driven by men. There was only one instance where I saw a woman driving one. And whenever we walked into little shops, it would more than half the time it would be a woman who should run here. Something that surprised me was that their clothing had meaning to it, in the sense that the men wore beanies that had these long tails with a lot of fuzzy alpaca fur balls on them. And if you wore it one way, it would mean you're not married. You wore it another way, it meant you're married. If you went another way, that meant you were looking to get married. So that was the thing with the clothing I started with. Then, relating to general, our guide Lichi was an amazing example of progression. One night at dinner, she was telling us all about her journey on becoming a mountaineering guide. And all the men in her class didn't think of her as a threat, or that she... I guess we're not listening. All the men in her class didn't think she could do it, because she was a woman. And with all those negativities going through her class, she passed it after graduating. She gathered a group of women to do the first all-women's ascent on a new route on the Osingate Mountain. They didn't make it all the way up, but them just getting part way up meant a lot because it showed that women are no lesser than men. So it's pretty awe-inspiring to meet her. We all see through different lenses, and we just saw through a few of them. We hope you enjoyed learning about what we got to see.
Hi, I'm Becca,
I'm Brian.
I'm Calvin.
and our group will be focusing more on the physical activities that we did while in Peru. Alright, so picture this. You wake up at 3 a.m. and to go hike Compa Peak, which is a huge mountain. And you wake up and it's snowing. It's not a light snow or a heavy snow, but it's something that'll definitely let you know that it's there. And the only thing you have to see is your headlamp, because it's 3 in the morning. And so you start hiking up and you have your headlamp, but when you look up, you see either a bright colored poncho in front of you, or you try to look off to the distance, but it's pretty dark out, so you see a couple different figures. And then when you're hiking up, you hear a crack followed by the sound of an avalanche. It wasn't that big, but it was big enough for us to hear. But to get a little picture in your mind, it was like breaking pool balls on a table. It was an amazing thing to hear and something that I'll never forget. While being up in the mountains, one of our guides, Lychee, helped us get ready for the hike and also would often tell us about her adventures to helping other people like us adventure around the mountains and go rock climbing and stuff. First of all, the mountains were huge, and there wasn't a moment that you couldn't look around and be breathtaking. You could look at the ground beneath you and be amazed. It was crazy. It was also one of those little moments that I noticed how it could change the way I saw something, which was from a talk our guide Lychee gave us. She spoke about how, and on her adventures, she went through a few struggles with being a female guide and how some people wouldn't take her that seriously, but she wouldn't let that stop her. And so she kept on doing what she did best, which was help people enjoy the amazing views and help them get through all the crazy mountain ranges and everything. And I asked the Link community one-word descriptions of what they thought of Lychee, and here are just a few. Pioneer, bright, inspiring, positive, amazing, and sunny. She knew what she has been taught and how long she has been hiking and climbing, that she had and knew all the tools she needed to be able to guide and help others. Because of all of her hard work, others were able to learn and get inspired. Which is why the Link community said all those positive things about her. What I was able to learn from the talk she gave was that I shouldn't be afraid to go after what I love and stop letting all the little things that I can't do or don't know yet take me down. To just go with it and take it as an opportunity to grow.
I will be talking to you about soccer and service work. Our first time that we got to was a town called Urubamba. We were there for a week, and one day we decided to go and have a soccer game with our chefs, which were Armando and Isidio. At first, I barely knew them. I just say hi to them, how's it going, that kind of stuff. But in the day that we played soccer, it was amazing how we connected and we had such a connection that we knew where we were gonna be in the next 30 seconds to get the ball and score a goal. And throughout these 3 weeks, we played soccer in every single climate that we had. Was cold, rainy, stormy, cloudy, valleys, hills, everywhere you can imagine. We were playing soccer, and it was such an amazing experience that we all got to experience. And something that I got talking to them was that we grew up in a similar situation. I was born in Colombia in this tiny little house, nothing really special, dirt floor, and he was telling me about how he grew up in a similar situation, chickens running around the kitchen, all that kind of stuff. And another thing that we did was we put plants and some interesting kind of plants in this greenhouse. It was already built, but there was nothing really inside. It was all filled with weeds and dirt not really being ready to plant. And we kind of fixed that, putting line through it, fixing water hose, and putting little plant, all different kind of plants in it, and getting the locals come and help. And also, this greenhouse was in the school, and the kids all over the community come to the school, and this was kind of helping them to eat more vegetables, because most of their source is meat, so they need some kind of vegetables to eat. And so we built this greenhouse, not building, putting plants on it, and people from the community just come and help us and teach us how to grow all this kind of vegetables. And something I took a lot of things, but something I took out was like learning all this kind of stuff, and I'm gonna use in the future if I ever decide to grow a greenhouse, which is probably gonna happen. And while I was in the plane coming back, I just came to my mind that one of those days those vegetables are gonna be ready, and a lot of kids are gonna be enjoying this vegetables, and they're just gonna smile, and that makes me really happy.
And so I'll be talking about the altitude in Peru. We were up above 9,000 feet for more than half the trip. The numbers show the altitude we were at, and the pictures go with it. The more elevation means that it was harder to breathe. The highest anyone got was just above 17,300 feet. Most of us were affected by the altitude by having a little sickness. No one got too sick, or no one got sick too badly though. When people got sick, they didn't have to stay back from progressing further on the trip. When people were not feeling well, they did stay back from going on day hikes, and we worked around the rest of it. We had a Christian Science practitioner working with us for the entire trip. We also worked with the practitioner individually to find the problems and heal the problems we had with our altitude sickness. A big thing I learned from this was that altitude is hard, but when your spirit's up, it's a lot of fun. The school also did a scavenger hunt one day in Cusco. We were divided up into groups. The group I was in was with Joel and James. We went around the city, and we had to use our Spanish to communicate and find all the answers to the questions. The scavenger hunt was arranged in a relatively small circle around the city plaza. My group had a fun time jogging around, trying to find all the places where the things were hiding. The weather during the scavenger hunt was clear in the beginning and it drizzled a bit near the end. At the end of the scavenger hunt, once everyone got back to the central plaza, Bobby and Natalie had prizes for us, for all of the teams. The team I was in won the scavenger hunt by half a point. I personally learned a ton of Spanish from being in Peru and put it into practice here. I did have some mess up moments during the hunt, but in the end, everyone had a great time playing the game and scavenging around for things. And these are some of the main physical activities we did in Peru.
Hi, my name is Natalie. Thank you all so much for coming today. One of the joys of travel is being able to widen your horizons. So far you've heard of some of our experiences through the lenses of academics, activities, and culture. We hope to share with you some of our aha moments that we experienced on a more personal level. Some of the emotion, intangible feelings, and personal change that resulted from our travels. And here's our group to introduce themselves.
I'm Leah.
I'm Santiago.
And I'm India.
All right, and Santi's going to begin.
Alright. So, when we first got off the plane, the first thing we all noticed was the presence of the mountains. They were so different than the ones we were all used to back home in Colorado. The mountains in Peru are very tall and incredibly steep. They seem to stick out of the ground like knives. It was definitely a surprising factor that Peru showed me, since I believed it'd be more jungly. One instance where we really got to see the awesomeness of the mountains was on our trek in Upis, a small community in the rolling hills of Peru. During our stay in Upis, it was mostly cloudy, but the locals kept talking about this majestic holy mountain called Asangate. Asangate is a 21,000-foot mountain that the locals believe is a god. Their lives revolve around this mountain and its weather patterns. Throughout the trek, we slowly began seeing bits of the mountain as the clouds slowly moved away. Once we got to Pachanta, another small community closer to Asangate, we were able to see the full image of the awe-inspiring mountain. This image of awe was really noticed due to the size of the mountain. You could look at one point of the mountain and think that was its peak, but then look higher and realize that was its peak. The mountain affected us by changing our moods. The presence of the mountains excited us, and in our excitement, we forgot to be worried. The Peruvian mountains truly gave us a new, inspiring, and holy view of this country.
Another huge aspect of this trip was the language barriers. The biggest reason to a lot of us for feeling really out of our comfort zones was the fact that the majority of us couldn't understand what was going on around us. We couldn't understand the conversations, the signs, or any of the advertisements, and this really makes you feel out of place. People in our group that did know Spanish were so much more comfortable because of it. But as soon as we entered the more mountainous regions where the natives spoke Quechua instead of Spanish, they too became frustrated by the fact that they couldn't understand what our guides were saying. Before our trip to Peru, I didn't think we would be able to be friends with people I didn't think I would be able to be friends with people when I couldn't even speak the same language as them. This view changed starting with our cooks, Isidro and Armando. These two stayed with us for almost the entire trip. In the beginning, my interactions with them consisted of me dropping off my dirty dishes, saying thank you, and then nodding in return. That is until the soccer game. For PE, one day we ran to a soccer field in town and played a soccer game with Isidro and Armando. This really changed things for me. You don't need to be able to have a conversation in Spanish when you're playing soccer. All that matters is that you're on a team working together to score a goal. We had a lot of fun during that time, and from then on I was friends with our cooks. It changed the rest of the trip for me because I learned a new universal language of love. Smiles and laughter could communicate as well as words. Language was a barrier, but it was also a motivator. Back in the States, Spanish can seem a little painful at times, but as soon as I was surrounded by Spanish culture, all I wanted was to be able to talk to the people around me. Language connects people. It's so different sitting in a classroom memorizing conjugations than being in a Peruvian market bartering about the prices of mangoes. This trip really made me learn how to connect with people through kindness instead of words, and it also ignited a new passion to learn this beautiful language. everybody. I'm gonna tell you guys a story. I am in the picture. Okay. So while this trip was packed full of adventure, there was a moment that kind of transformed how I thought about myself and what my limits were. Okay, so there we were. We just walked from Upis to Pachanta, both small villages up in the Andes, and we were planning on peaking an 18,000-foot mountain in a couple of days. The hike from Pachanta to our base camp was only 4 hours, but at that time, no one in our group was feeling well. It was cold, it was wet, it was unfamiliar because we're in the middle of Peru, and a lot of us were worried. It's scary being so far from home and knowing that hiking this peak could be potentially dangerous. However, in the Link School fashion, the next day we hiked. It was insanely beautiful. National Geographic could never do these mountains justice. And the hike was lovely. And for the first time in 4 days, the sun shone for longer than 30 minutes. I took this as a sign that I shouldn't be so scared. And for those hours, I wasn't. But then, after dinner, we were getting ready to go to bed at my ideal bedtime of 7 p.m. And I started to freak out again. My mind was like this hamster wheel of, I have to get up at 2 a.m.? I never do anything at 2 a.m. What if I don't sleep well because we're at 16,000 feet? What if I fall off a cliff? What if we get hit by an avalanche? What if I get an asthma attack? Oh my god. And then I passed out. And when I woke up the next morning at 2 a.m., I was fine. I felt well rested. All my fear had disappeared. And it was snowing. Something that I'd been so terrified of kind of felt like a blessing. And none of the conditions I had feared had changed, but there was peace anyway. And this was a really cool experience to have. We experienced new and surprising things in Peru. We saw old ideas and new lights. But for me, most importantly, it challenged my belief in what I could accomplish for myself. And that's what traveling is. It's challenging your beliefs, discovering who you are. So thank you so much for coming to this presentation, and we are now coming up here to answer some questions if you guys have any. So thank you.
Yeah, so you guys can ask questions you have, and also so that you're mentally prepared, there will be a slideshow after this as well, with music and stuff.
This was talking about.
I have a question. So what was your response to Machu Picchu in terms of, none of you really mentioned touring that area?
It was really, really interesting to be able to see photos in science class of Machu Picchu that was covered in brush and all those different things, and to go there and be able to see it as it was in that time, more or less. But it was really cool to be able to go there and see it in its glory, so to speak. It was awe-inspiring, kind of like all of our other parts of the trip. It was a little more, I don't know how to say this, like institutionalized, touristy. That's the word. There was just a lot of people there, but we still got to enjoy it, which was really nice.
Did you find out when Machu Picchu was built?
A really, really, really long time ago.
That's
Like the 1500s.
That's 3 longs.
Like early 2000s. Yeah.
I expect you're still studying Spanish after coming back. Did any of you have kind of a change in your perspective of what it's like to continue to study Spanish? Did you get inspired to study Spanish when you got back?
I definitely did. It was super powerful to go there, and I think being in a classroom, maybe my interest had gone down a little bit, but then after Peru, like all over again, I had a new interest in Spanish and diving back in.
I'm curious. I traveled to Peru and I noticed there were a lot of happy people. Can one of you or a couple of you describe who was the happiest person you think you met on your travels and maybe why they were so happy? Everyone.
I think Pablito and Marguerite, the 2 shamans that I talked about, they seemed bubbling over with joy. It's hard to explain. We came to their house on very, very short notice. Like, we came up to their house 30 minutes after we planned it, just because of the weather. But they were so welcoming to just have us there, and they were smiling ear to ears. It was very hard to not see that, and just, yeah, it was really cool to see that.
Yeah, I'd say Pablito and Marguerite for sure. Like, I didn't even know who they were yet. I hadn't met them yet. And suddenly there was this old lady coming up to me and kissing me on the cheek and hugging me. She was very excited to meet all of us.
You showed a picture of a guinea pig. Could you comment on the typical meals that Peruvians have?
Soup. Potatoes.
Did you like the potatoes?
Some of them.
Not the dehydrated, not
Did you actually get to try guinea pig?
Yes.
Was it good?
They call it kui down there. It's the term that they have. Pretty cool. Learn about that.
Still hair on it.
Yeah.
Did they have much in the way of fruits and vegetables where you were?
Yeah, we had this one fruit that kind of had like a bunch of little fruity pods inside its shell. And you just kind of like sucked on it, and like it just had this super new texture that we had
It was weird.
never tasted before. We liked it, and unfortunately we don't have any here in the US.
If you know what chia seeds are like, it's like big chia seeds with a lot more gel on the outside.
Tried lots of new fruits there.
Yeah.
Did you feel very disappointed about not being able to climb the mountain that you set out for? And can you tell us a little bit how you felt?
I mean, I didn't feel disappointed because we got to 17,000 feet, and it was early in the morning, and you could just kind of see the sunrise, and you just kind of felt like you're at peace and really relaxed and calm, and you just kind of feel part of the mountain. So either way, if I making it or just halfway, I was happy either way. It was just such a beautiful scenery that was just filled my heart.
One question, so the happiness that was asked about obviously did not come from the things that they had, the material things. And so when you came back to this culture, where it seems like we're all dependent on those things to make us happy, did it change your idea about happiness, and how did you fit back into this culture where it's so, dependent on stuff?
I guess kind of like a big part was that people there really admired the environment around them, especially the mountains, and I think that kind of gave us a new perspective of just what's around us, and bringing that back here, we obviously have beautiful mountains all around us, and it's just a kind of new way to view happiness and just experience your views differently. It's nice.
The difference that I kind of noticed with that culture is there's a huge difference between happiness and convenience.
Did you meet any kids your age, and what do you think they thought of you?
We went to a ceramics place one day, and the kind of owner of the shop, he had his own teenage boys, and I think we definitely have a good interaction, especially people who could speak the language. That I think they thought it was funny every time I messed up with the paint on the ceramics. I think we had a pretty good interaction. We did invite them to soccer, but they didn't show up.
Is their typical dress quite different from what we would have in the States? What they would wear?
They all wear like pretty normal clothes, but a lot of them do wear totally traditional outfits, and they're crazy colorful, lots of layers and different clothing items that's totally different from here. And a lot of people do wear that, but in general, it's the same clothes.
I've read that the glaciers in Peru are receding. Did you guys have any introduction to global climate change and its effect on Peru?
Yes. When we were supposed to peak Campa, we were supposed to reach the glacier in about an hour, and we did not. And we hiked until, 17,000 feet. We still hadn't reached the glacier, and before, when Lake was here 5 years before, they reached the glacier in an hour, and it had receded about 1,000 feet. So, yeah, we did.
Thank you.
Just one other question about weather. It sounded like you had a lot of rain, clouds, and all the other stuff that goes with it. Was this that time of the year, or is it kind of always like that, or?
Yeah, we were in the rainy season.
It's what?
We were in the rainy season. They have the rainy season and the dry season, so that's about it.
Who lived up to his name? Did you get into any of their schools?
Just a new piece. It was like a little, I think, was it a high school? I don't know. It was like this little community. But we didn't get to interact at any classes or anything.
I think it was the off season for school. They had gotten out of school the day that we were at. Oh, of course.
Thank you guys for your questions. We're gonna watch a little slideshow now that James put together. Thanks guys, good job.